The strange new roommate. It was the beginning of a new chapter in Sam's life. She had just moved into a shared apartment, looking forward to the quiet and simple life of a student. Little did she know that her new roommate would turn out to be anything but ordinary. The ad for the apartment had seemed perfect. Cheap rent, great location, and the roommate description was simple. Young professional looking for someone clean, respectful, and easygoing. That sounded like exactly what Sam needed. So she packed her things and moved in. When she first met her roommate, it was, well, strange. Her new roommate didn't look exactly like the other people Sam had met in the city. At first glance, they appeared perfectly normal, someone who could easily blend into the crowd. But something was off. Sam couldn't put her finger on it. Maybe it was the way they moved or the odd way their eyes seemed to flicker when they spoke. There was a quiet intensity about them that made Sam feel just a little uncomfortable, though she couldn't explain why. Their name was Zorath, and they introduced themselves with a calm voice that was oddly deep, yet soft. Sam wasn't sure what to make of them, but they were polite. Too polite. When they greeted her at the door, they didn't shake hands, but bowed slightly in a manner that felt almost too formal. Sam just chalked it up to cultural differences and thought nothing more of it. After all, she was here to study and live her life, not analyze her roommate's quirks. The first few days passed without anything too strange happening. Zorath seemed to keep to themselves, which Sam didn't mind. They had their own routine, quiet and reserved, staying in their room for hours, only coming out for meals. But Sam did notice that Zorath never seemed to sleep, at least not like she did. Every time Sam woke up in the middle of the night, Zorath would be in the living room staring at the wall as if lost in thought. Sam tried not to dwell on it, assuming it was just a strange sleep pattern. Things began to get a little more unusual when Sam started noticing Zorath's behavior toward her. They would observe Sam intently, often watching her without speaking. It wasn't a casual glance either. Zorath's gaze was deep, like they were studying Sam, trying to figure her out. Sam didn't know how to respond to that kind of attention. It was as if Zorath was constantly watching, like they were waiting for something to happen. One evening, things took an unexpected turn. Sam had just finished her shower and was getting dressed in her room when she heard a knock on the door. She didn't think much of it, assuming it was Zorath needing something or just asking if she was free to chat. But when she opened the door, there was Zorath, standing there, eyes wide, staring at Sam in a way that felt different. They didn't speak at first. Zorath just stood there, mouth slightly open, eyes blinking in confusion. For a moment, Sam froze. Something was wrong. She hadn't expected to see Zorath there, and she certainly hadn't expected to be caught in such an awkward moment. The door hadn't fully closed when she'd opened it, and before she could think, Zorath walked right in, almost like they were in a trance. Sam quickly pulled the door shut and tried to act casual, but Zorath's reaction made her skin crawl. They weren't laughing, weren't making any sort of apology. Instead, Zorath just blinked and tilted their head. "Are you all right?" Sam asked, trying to hide her own discomfort. Zorath stared for a few more seconds. Then, without warning, they spoke in a soft, slow tone. I didn't understand. I have never seen this before." Sam's heart raced. Was Zorath talking about what had just happened, or was it something else? She stood there, unsure of how to respond. Should she explain her embarrassment, apologize for the awkwardness, or pretend it was no big deal? But before Sam could say anything more, Zorath took a step back and turned toward the door. It was as if the situation had completely changed for them, but Sam didn't know why. Zorath paused at the doorframe, their eyes lingering on Sam with an odd intensity before speaking again. "This human custom, I am unfamiliar with it. It is intriguing." Okay. Well, it's normal for humans to have private moments," Sam stammered, feeling more awkward by the second. "You know, everyone needs their privacy." Zorath nodded slowly, their gaze never leaving Sam's face. "Privacy. I understand now. But I do not understand how you humans experience it." Sam's mind raced. Was Zorath saying they didn't know what privacy was? Or were they saying they didn't understand human emotions at all? The whole conversation was confusing and uncomfortable. Look, I'm just gonna go change, all right? Let's just forget about this, okay? Sam said, trying to end the conversation. Zorath didn't respond immediately. Instead, they stood there, eyes still focused on Sam. There was a silence in the air, as if something important was hanging between them. Sam could feel it, that strange energy, that sense that Zorath was trying to figure something out. Something about her, about humans in general. As Sam closed her bedroom door, she let out a deep breath. Her mind was racing. She didn't know what just happened, but she felt something was wrong. Was Zorath studying her? Was this a cultural thing, or was it something more? Later that night, Sam lay awake in bed, trying to shake off the unease. Zorath was not like anyone Sam had met before. Something about them was just too strange. And now, after that encounter, she couldn't stop thinking about it. What was Zorath really doing here? And why did it feel like they were hiding something? The questions swirled in Sam's mind. But one thing was certain. Her new roommate was definitely not what they seemed. And Sam was about to find out just how far that strangeness would go. The unexpected accident, the days following that strange encounter felt different, almost unreal. Sam couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between her and Zorath. The air around them felt charged, like a conversation was waiting to happen, but neither of them knew how to start it. The awkwardness lingered, stretching the space between them to an uncomfortable distance. Zorath's behavior had also grown, more unusual. Every time Sam looked up, Zorath would be staring at her, not in a rude or hostile way, but with an intensity that made Sam feel like an object of study. She couldn't help but wonder if Zorath was analyzing her every move, trying to understand the strange human emotions they had hinted at. What did they want? What were they looking for? Sam decided to keep to herself more. She didn't want to encourage Zorath's curiosity, but at the same time she couldn't avoid them forever. They shared the same apartment after all. So Sam kept her distance, focusing on her studies and her own routine, hoping that things would settle back to normal. But the more she tried to ignore Zorath, the more the alien seemed to be everywhere. It was one afternoon when the accident happened. Sam had just come out of the shower, feeling the cool relief of clean skin and the calm after a long day of studying. She had been working on a paper all morning, and her mind was a fog of statistics and theories. Her brain was foggy, her body tired, and the last thing she expected was to find Zorath in the hallway as she stepped out of her room. Her towel was wrapped around her, her hair wet and dripping onto her shoulders. Sam didn't think twice about it. After all, she was in her own space, but as soon as she stepped out, she froze. Zorath was standing in the hallway, just a few feet away, looking right at her. It wasn't the typical glance. Zorath wasn't looking away in embarrassment or shame like a person might when they accidentally walked in on someone. No, Zorath stood there completely still, observing her as though they were cataloging every detail. There was no hesitation in their gaze. Sam could feel the weight of it on her skin. "Zorath?" she said, her voice shaky, unsure if she should even speak. Zorath didn't answer immediately. Instead, they stepped closer, eyes still fixed on her. Sam instinctively tightened her grip on her towel, but it felt futile. Zorath didn't seem to care that Sam was barely covered. It was almost as if the concept of modesty didn't exist in their mind. "Are you okay?" Sam asked again, her heart pounding. Zorath blinked slowly, then tilted their head to the side as if they were considering her words. "I do not understand," they said in their calm, emotionless voice. "Why do you cover yourself in this way? It seems unnecessary." Sam's face flushed bright red. The awkwardness hit her like a tidal wave. Zorath's words didn't seem to carry any malice, but their confusion only made things more uncomfortable. Zorath wasn't embarrassed, wasn't looking away, just staring at her as though she were some kind of puzzle they were trying to solve. Sam stammered, struggling to form words. She didn't know how to explain it. She didn't know how to explain why it was important for her to cover up in a private moment. It's just what we do. Humans, I mean. We cover up to keep things private. Zorath's eyes widened slightly, but their face remained unreadable. Private? They repeated the word slowly, as if tasting it on their tongue. A concept of separation. You mean you wish to hide from me? No, Sam exclaimed, quickly waving her hands. No, it's not like that. It's just normal. For humans, I mean. Zorath paused, considering her words. I see. I am sorry if I have disturbed you. I do not fully understand this need for privacy. Zorath's voice softened slightly, almost as if they were trying to make an effort to understand, but it still felt robotic, detached. They took a step back, and for the first time, Sam felt a brief moment of relief. But before she could relax, Zorath added, I will need to study this more. The statement sent a cold shiver down Sam's spine. It wasn't just curiosity. It was a clinical, detached statement. It sounded as if Zorath had decided that this whole situation was some experiment, something they needed to understand like a new form of life. Sam stood there in stunned silence. Wait, study what? This isn't some kind of experiment, Zorath. It's just how humans are. Zorath didn't answer. Instead, they simply nodded once, their expression unreadable. Then in one fluid motion, they turned and walked away, disappearing into their room without another word. Sam stood in the hallway for a moment, unsure of what had just happened. She felt shaken, exposed, and confused. What had she just experienced? Zorath had seen her at her most vulnerable, and instead of feeling embarrassed or uncomfortable, they acted as if it was a curiosity to be studied. It was like Sam was nothing more than a specimen to them, an object of interest that they had to analyze. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Sam couldn't concentrate on anything. Every time she thought about the incident, a mix of emotions bubbled up. Embarrassment, anger, confusion. But mostly she couldn't shake the eerie feeling that Zorath wasn't like anyone she had ever met. And this weird behavior was only the beginning. That night, as Sam lay in bed, she couldn't help but replay the encounter in her mind. Zorath had been calm, almost too calm, about the whole thing. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. There was something deeper going on, something she didn't understand. What was Zorath really after? And why did this feel like just the tip of the iceberg? Sam knew one thing for sure. This living arrangement was about to become a lot more complicated. As she turned off the lights and tried to sleep, she couldn't shake the unsettling thought. What if Zorath wasn't just a strange roommate? What if there was more to them than she realized? And what would happen if Zorath decided to study more about humans, starting with her? A weird apology. The days after the incident felt like they were moving at a different pace. Sam had been doing everything she could to avoid Zorath, but it wasn't easy. They still shared the same apartment after all, and no matter how much Sam tried to keep things normal, the tension between them was impossible to ignore. Zorath had not spoken much since their awkward encounter, but Sam couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Their behavior was becoming even more peculiar. They would linger in the living room, quietly staring at their surroundings, for long periods of time. Sam couldn't tell if they were simply observing or if they were lost in some kind of deep thought. Sam was starting to feel like she was living in a quiet storm, an eerie calm before something unpredictable happened. She wasn't sure if she should be concerned, but the fact that Zorath hadn't tried to explain the incident bothered her. That night, as she was cleaning up her dishes in the kitchen, Sam's mind was racing. She was just drying a plate when she heard Zorath's soft voice behind her. Sam. She turned, startled. Zorath was standing there, their face expressionless as always, but their posture seemed different, more tentative. Zorath, hi, what's up? Sam said, trying to sound normal. Even though her heart was beating a little faster than usual, Zorath hesitated as if they were processing her question. I wanted to apologize. Sam blinked, surprised. An apology? Zorath had never apologized for anything, especially not for what had happened. It was hard to imagine Zorath, the cool and distant alien, admitting fault in any way. But as she looked at them, something in their eyes made her pause. There was something almost vulnerable about the way they were standing, like they were trying to make sense of their own actions. Okay, Sam replied slowly, still trying to process what was happening. For what? For earlier, when Zorath's voice trailed off for a moment, then they spoke again, their words careful. When I saw you exposed, I did not mean to make you uncomfortable. I did not understand, and I should not have behaved in that way. I will try to understand better. Sam stood frozen for a moment. Zorath was apologizing, but it didn't quite feel like a normal apology. It was too mechanical, too calculated. Zorath's tone was devoid of any real emotion, like they were simply repeating something they had learned to say. Yet there was a certain honesty in their words that Sam couldn't ignore. You're trying to understand? Sam asked, the words slipping out before she could stop them. She wasn't sure if she should be upset or curious. What do you mean by that? Zorath seemed to hesitate, shifting uncomfortably. Humans have many customs, emotions. I do not always understand them, but seeing you in such a vulnerable state, I began to feel something. Zorath's eyes flickered briefly before they continued. It was not exactly discomfort, but it was something unfamiliar. Something I must learn to understand. Sam was confused. It wasn't like Zorath to admit they didn't understand something, but here they were, standing in front of her, attempting to explain their feelings, if you could even call them feelings. It was all so strange. Zorath wasn't a person, not in the way Sam understood people. Their alien nature made it impossible for Sam to predict what would happen next. But here they were, trying to connect, trying to make some sense of the human concept of privacy and modesty. Was it possible that Zorath was genuinely trying to learn? Sam finally spoke, her voice softer than she expected. I don't know what you're trying to say, Zorath, but I get it, kind of. You're not from here, so everything must be confusing. But you can't just act like that again. You need to respect personal boundaries. Zorath nodded, their expression still unreadable. I will respect your boundaries. I have learned that they are important to you. I apologize again for my actions. There was a pause. Sam wasn't sure if she should accept the apology or not. Something about it felt hollow, like it wasn't really an apology in the human sense. But at the same time, it was the closest thing to an apology Sam had received from Zorath, and maybe that was enough. I'll just need some time to get used to everything, Sam said, trying to put things back in perspective. I'm not used to living with someone who's, well, not human. Zorath didn't respond immediately, but their eyes softened a little. For a moment, Sam almost felt like they understood. Maybe they did, in their own way. I understand, Zorath said quietly, almost as if speaking to themselves. I will try to be more careful in the future. As Zorath turned and left the kitchen, Sam stood there for a long moment, her thoughts swirling. She hadn't expected this conversation to go like it did, but it didn't make her feel any less confused. It wasn't just the apology itself, it was the fact that Zorath had come to her, acknowledging the situation at all. Sam had expected them to stay distant, to pretend like nothing had happened, or maybe even act like it didn't matter. But Zorath's words were a step in the right direction, even if Sam wasn't sure they fully understood the gravity of the situation. The tension had been broken, but there was still something unsettling about it. Zorath wasn't human. No matter how much they tried to understand, there would always be a gap, a difference in perspective that Sam wasn't sure could be crossed. As Sam made her way back to her room, her mind wandered back to Zorath's words. I began to feel something. What did that mean? Could it be that Zorath was starting to experience emotions even in a rudimentary way? Or was it something else entirely? She didn't know, but the more she thought about it, the more questions piled up in her mind. Could Zorath really be trying to understand human emotions? Or was there something deeper, something Sam hadn't even considered? Whatever the case, Sam realized that living with Zorath was going to be a lot more complicated than she had imagined. And if she wasn't careful, she might end up discovering things she wasn't ready for. As the night stretched on, Sam lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for sleep to take her. But it didn't. Instead, the questions remained, hanging in the air like a quiet storm, unanswered and waiting to unravel. Unsettling changes. The days had settled into a strange rhythm after Zorath's apology. Sam was still unsure about how to process everything that had happened, but she was beginning to accept the oddities of living with an alien. Still, there was an unsettling feeling that refused to leave her. It was as though the calm on the surface was hiding something deeper, something that Sam couldn't quite grasp. Zorath's behavior had changed since their conversation in the kitchen. They were quieter now, more withdrawn than before, but something was different. Something in the air felt charged. Sam couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she could sense it. Zorath was still observing her, still watching, but it was more intense now. They weren't just studying her anymore. It felt as if they were trying to mirror her actions, trying to understand her down to the smallest detail. It started subtly. Sam would walk into the kitchen to make breakfast, and she'd find Zorath standing by the counter, watching the way she cracked eggs into the pan or stirred the coffee. At first, it didn't seem like anything to worry about. Zorath had always been curious, right? But then, one morning, Sam noticed something strange. She had just poured herself a cup of coffee when she saw Zorath across the room, mimicking her every movement. It wasn't just coincidence. Zorath had watched her carefully, and now they were holding their mug in the exact same way. They didn't even seem to realize they were doing it. It was as if Zorath had decided that they had to imitate her. Every gesture, every motion, down to the smallest detail. "Zorath?" Sam asked, a bit uncomfortable, not sure how to address what was happening. Zorath blinked, their gaze locking with Sam's for a moment before they spoke in their usual soft tone. "Yes, Sam?" "Are you copying me?" Sam asked cautiously, unsure if she was imagining it. Zorath looked down at their own hand, still holding the mug in the exact way Sam was. They glanced back up at her, their face neutral. "I am studying your actions. I am learning how you interact with your environment." "Why?" Sam asked, feeling a bit of unease creep into her voice. "I do not understand it fully," Zorath admitted, their tone as calm as always. "But I feel it is important to know, to experience how humans behave." Sam felt a strange mix of emotions. There was something unsettling about the way Zorath was behaving. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was almost as if Zorath was trying to become human. The thought made her uneasy. She wanted to believe Zorath was just trying to learn, but the intensity of their attention made it feel like something more. As the days went by, this behavior continued, and it became more pronounced. Zorath started mimicking more than just physical actions. Sam would hum a song while cleaning, and Zorath would start humming it too. If Sam picked up a book, Zorath would silently reach for one, not reading it, but simply holding it in the same way. If Sam watched a TV show, Zorath would sit down beside her, not saying a word, but watching everything with a focused intensity, as though absorbing the human experience through osmosis. One evening, as Sam sat on the couch, flipping through channels, on the TV she noticed that Zorath had taken a seat beside her, closer than usual. Sam felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Zorath didn't speak, didn't even react to the show. They just sat there quietly observing her, their gaze fixed and unwavering. Sam tried to ignore the growing discomfort in her chest. She was used to having time to herself, but now it felt like Zorath's presence was always just a little too close, a little too watchful. A few nights later, things took an even stranger turn. Sam had been reading in her room, trying to relax after a long day. The silence of the apartment was comforting, but as she reached for a glass of water, she froze. Zorath was standing just outside her door, not in the hallway, but right at the edge of the threshold, their silhouette barely visible in the dim light. "Zorath?" Sam called out, her voice uncertain. Zorath didn't move, didn't speak. They just stood there watching Sam with an intensity that was starting to feel suffocating. "Is there something you need?" Sam asked, her heart starting to race a little. "No," Zorath replied quietly. "I was just observing." Sam's mouth went dry. "Observing what?" Zorath stepped forward, their voice even softer now, as if speaking in a whisper meant only for her ears. "How you rest. How you sleep. How you exist." Sam felt a chill crawl up her spine. It wasn't just mimicry anymore. Zorath was fixated on the smallest details of her life. They weren't just trying to understand her. They were trying to become her. The realization hit Sam like a ton of bricks. What had started as a simple curiosity had evolved into something far more complex, something that made Sam's skin crawl. "Zorath, this isn't normal," Sam said, her voice shaking. "You can't just watch me like this. It's not healthy." Zorath didn't seem to register the gravity of Sam's words. Instead, they tilted their head, their eyes focused, almost as if processing the information. "I do not understand. You seem to be uncomfortable, but I am only learning. I am trying to understand what it means to be human." Sam stood up, her mind racing. "Zorath, you can't just study me like I'm some kind of experiment. I'm a person, not a project. You need to back off." Zorath's expression didn't change, but for a split second Sam saw something flicker in their eyes. Something close to confusion, almost as if they didn't know how to respond. It was the first time she had seen Zorath uncertain about something. I am sorry," Zorath said, their voice quiet. "I did not intend to make you uncomfortable. I was only trying to understand." Sam felt a wave of frustration and exhaustion wash over her. "Well, it's not working," she muttered under her breath, turning away from Zorath. "It's just too much." Zorath didn't move, but Sam could feel their presence lingering in the room. It was clear now that they weren't just studying her in a detached, clinical way. Zorath was getting too close, too involved in her life, and Sam had no idea how to pull back from this, how to set the boundaries that Zorath seemed to be completely oblivious to. The quiet after that conversation was deafening. Sam sat on her bed trying to make sense of it all. Zorath's behavior wasn't just strange anymore, it was unsettling. It was as if the alien had crossed some invisible line between curiosity and obsession, and Sam wasn't sure how much longer she could handle it. One thing was certain: Zorath's actions were starting to cross into dangerous territory. The alien was no longer just a roommate. They were becoming an unpredictable force that Sam couldn't control, and Sam had no idea what would happen next. The alien's secret. The days following that unnerving encounter were filled with a strange, uncomfortable silence. Sam couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between her and Zorath, but what exactly that something was, she wasn't sure. Their behavior had become more erratic, more intense, as if they were driven by an unseen force to understand everything about her. But despite all the strange things happening around her, Sam couldn't help but feel a growing curiosity of her own. There was something about Zorath's obsession with her, with humanity, that felt both terrifying and fascinating. Sam found herself avoiding Zorath more than ever. She stayed in her room, focusing on her studies, trying to keep busy to avoid the oppressive, watchful presence that seemed to hang around the apartment. But no matter how much she tried to shut Zorath out, they were always there, quietly observing, mimicking her every move, their eyes constantly following her. It wasn't just the physical presence anymore. It was as if Zorath had become a constant thought in the back of Sam's mind. Every time she moved, every time she spoke, she was aware that Zorath was watching her, studying her like some kind of experiment. It was exhausting. One evening, Sam sat in the living room, trying to unwind with a book in her hands. She had just gotten home from class and had been hoping for a peaceful night, but she could feel Zorath's presence looming in the apartment, just out of sight. The air felt thick, heavy, like a storm was brewing. She had barely turned a page when she heard the soft click of Zorath's footsteps approaching. Sam didn't look up at first. She was tired, too tired to engage, too tired to deal with the alien's constant fixation on her. But Zorath wasn't leaving. This time, instead of sitting quietly like they usually did, Zorath spoke in a voice that was softer than usual, almost hesitant. "Sam," Zorath said, their tone more uncertain than Sam had ever heard. "Can we talk?" Reluctantly, Sam put down her book and turned toward them. "About what?" Zorath took a few slow steps forward, their eyes unusually focused. "There is something I must tell you," Zorath said, their voice barely above a whisper. "Something you do not know. Something I should have shared with you earlier." Sam felt a chill run down her spine. The way Zorath was acting, the way they spoke. It was as if the alien was about to reveal something that would change everything. She had no idea what to expect, but she had a feeling that whatever Zorath was going to say, it would make everything even more complicated. "Okay," Sam replied, her voice steady but laced with unease. "What's going on, Zorath?" Zorath paused for a long moment, and for the first time Sam saw something that resembled hesitation in their eyes. "I am not like you," Zorath began slowly. "I am not just here by chance. I did not come to Earth simply to observe. I have a mission, a reason for being here." Sam's heart skipped a beat. She had suspected that something was off, but hearing Zorath admit it aloud sent a wave of disbelief over her. "A mission?" Sam repeated, trying to wrap her head around the words. "What do you mean? You're not just my roommate?" Zorath didn't answer immediately. Instead, they turned away, their gaze lost somewhere in the distance. It was like they were gathering their thoughts, piecing together something they had kept buried for far too long. When they spoke again, their voice was filled with an intensity Sam had never heard before. "I came to Earth to understand your species," Zorath said. "To learn how you function, how you think, how you feel. I was sent here to study humans, specifically human emotions." Sam's mind raced, her thoughts tumbling over one another as she tried to process what Zorath had just revealed. "Wait, you were sent here by whom? To study emotions?" Her voice cracked slightly, a mix of shock and confusion. Zorath turned back toward her, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the room. "I was sent by my people, Sam. We do not experience emotions the way you do. We do not understand them. But we believe that understanding them is essential. We need to know how they work, how they shape your decisions, your lives. That is why I came here." Sam felt her stomach drop. She had been living with an alien this entire time, but she hadn't known the truth. Zorath wasn't just a strange roommate. They were a researcher, a being sent to study her, to study humans. The sense of betrayal hit Sam like a physical blow, and for a moment she wasn't sure what to say or do. Are you using me?" Sam asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "All this time you've been watching me, studying me like some kind of experiment?" Zorath's expression softened, and for a fleeting moment Sam saw something in their eyes that made her question everything. "I did not come here to harm you," Zorath said quietly. "But I did not understand. I thought I was simply learning. But being here with you, I have started to feel something I never expected." Sam's confusion deepened. "Feel something? What do you mean?" Zorath seemed to struggle with their words, the conflict in their eyes unmistakable. I do not know how to explain it. It is like a connection, something I did not understand until now. Your emotions, they are so powerful, so complex. I thought I was just observing you, but now, I feel like I am a part of it too. Your anger, your fear, your sadness, they are all so real. I am not just watching you anymore. I am feeling with you. I don't know what to do with it." Sam's mind swirled with emotions. Zorath was admitting that they had been sent to study her, but now it seemed like they were feeling things themselves. The alien who had once felt distant, cold, and entirely detached from human experience was now speaking as though they had crossed some invisible line. She wasn't sure whether to be terrified or to empathize. Zorath was caught between two worlds, one of scientific observation and the other of genuine, unexplained human emotions. Sam didn't know what to make of it. "So what does this mean?" Sam asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from me?" Zorath's gaze softened, almost pleading. "I want to understand. I want to learn how you feel. But I do not know how to do this. I have never felt like this before. I do not know if this is even allowed." Sam looked at Zorath, her mind still spinning. The alien in front of her was no longer just a curious observer. They were struggling with something much deeper, something that could change everything between them. But Sam didn't know what to do with this revelation. Could she trust Zorath? Was this feeling they had discovered genuine, or was it just another part of their mission? "I don't know if I can help you," Sam finally said, her voice quiet but firm. "But I need some time to think about this. I don't know what you're feeling, Zorath, but I need to figure out what this means for me, for us." Zorath nodded slowly, their face unreadable. "I understand, Sam. I will give you time. I only wanted to tell you the truth." As Zorath turned and left the room, Sam felt a deep sense of confusion settle over her. She had learned something important, but now the world she thought she knew felt like it was starting to unravel. What did Zorath's emotions mean? And how would this truth change everything she had thought about their relationship? Sam didn't know. But one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. A new understanding, the days that followed. Zorath's revelation were clouded with confusion and uncertainty. Sam had been processing everything Zorath had shared with her, their mission, the emotions they were beginning to experience, and the strange new connection that seemed to have formed between them. Sam wasn't sure what to make of it. Zorath was an alien, and yet in some way they seemed more human than she had ever imagined. But despite the growing bond, a part of Sam still couldn't shake the feeling that she was living with something she couldn't fully understand. Zorath had given Sam the space she asked for, though their presence was ever present, quietly lurking at the edges of her thoughts. They continued to observe. But now, Sam noticed something different. Zorath wasn't just watching anymore. There was a kind of reverence in the way they interacted with Sam. They were no longer simply studying her. Now, it felt as though they were trying to understand her on a deeper level, like they were almost learning how to be human. It was subtle, but it was there. One evening, Sam returned home to find Zorath sitting in the living room, staring at a wall. Their usual calm demeanor was replaced with something that seemed almost uneasy. Sam hesitated, before entering, unsure if she should disturb them, but the silence between them had been growing too thick. She could feel the weight of it in the air. "Zorath?" Sam called gently, her voice quiet as she stepped into the room. Zorath turned toward her, their expression almost apologetic. "I am sorry, Sam. I did not mean to make you feel uncomfortable." Sam frowned, sensing the tension in Zorath's voice. "It's not that, I'm not sure what's happening between us. I feel like there's this thing hanging over us, but we're not talking about it." Zorath seemed to consider her words carefully before they stood up and approached her slowly, as though unsure of what Sam might do. "I have been trying to understand," they said quietly. "I have been learning. But the more I try to comprehend, the more I realize that I am still lost. I do not know how to feel what you feel. I do not know how to be human." Sam's heart softened, her previous unease replaced with something else, a kind of compassion. She had never thought of Zorath's situation this way before. To her, Zorath had always been the strange, otherworldly roommate who didn't understand her boundaries, who observed her with cold curiosity. But now Sam realized that Zorath was struggling with something much deeper. They weren't just trying to understand her. They were trying to understand themselves and their place in a world they had never experienced before. "You're not just trying to understand me, are you?" Sam said, taking a cautious step forward. You're trying to understand yourself, how you fit into this world, how you feel about everything you're experiencing. It's not just about what I do or how I act. It's about who you are. Zorath's gaze softened as they nodded slowly. Yes, I thought my mission was to simply observe, to catalog. But the longer I stay here, the more I realize that I am changing. I'm not sure how to explain it. I do not understand emotions as you do, but I feel them. It is overwhelming. Sam studied Zorath for a moment, considering their words. It was the first time they had openly admitted their internal struggle, and Sam was starting to see a different side of them, a side that felt vulnerable, even fragile. For the first time since they had met, Zorath no longer seemed like an alien experiment. They seemed human. The thought startled Sam. I can't pretend to know what you're going through, Sam said softly. I can't even imagine what it's like to suddenly experience emotions after living without them. But you don't have to do it alone. Zorath's eyes widened slightly, as if surprised by Sam's words. You would help me, even though I am not human. Sam nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. I think we're both in the same boat, Zorath. We're both trying to figure out who we are. I may not know how to help you with your emotions, but maybe I can help you understand them. I can't promise that it'll be easy. Hell, I don't even know if I'll understand everything either. But we can try together. For the first time since their strange living arrangement began, Zorath looked at Sam not with cold detachment or intense curiosity, but with something like hope, a feeling that Sam had never seen in their eyes before. I would like that, Zorath said, their voice barely above a whisper. I would like to try. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It felt like a new beginning, one filled with uncertainty but also with the possibility of understanding. The strange bond that had been forming between them was no longer just a matter of observation. It was something more personal now, something Sam hadn't anticipated. It was a shared journey, one where they both had to learn from each other, even if the process was messy and confusing. The next few days were filled with small moments of discovery. Sam began explaining things to Zorath, simple things like humor, sadness, and joy. They watched movies together, and Sam would pause the film to explain why a character was laughing or crying, what it meant to feel embarrassed or proud. Zorath would listen intently, trying to understand the nuances of human emotion, even as their own experiences seemed to stir something within them. There were moments of laughter, moments of frustration, and moments of pure confusion. But through it all, Sam saw something change in Zorath. The alien who had once been cold and distant was now starting to soften. They were trying with all their might to comprehend what it meant to be human, and Sam could see that in their own way, they were beginning to experience emotions themselves. It wasn't the same as what Sam felt, but it was something, and that something was enough to make Sam believe in the possibility of real connection between them. One evening, after watching a particularly emotional film, Zorath turned to Sam, their face thoughtful. I think I understand, they said slowly, what it means to feel connected to someone else, to share a moment, a memory, even if we are not the same. I think I feel something when I'm with you. Something real. Sam smiled, her heart warming. I think that's a good place to start, she said softly. Maybe we don't have all the answers, but we're figuring it out together. Zorath nodded, their expression still uncertain but filled with something Sam couldn't quite name. It was the first time Sam felt like they truly understood each other, even if the journey wasn't complete. The road ahead was still full of questions, but for the first time, Sam felt like they were on the same path. As she looked at Zorath, Sam realized that this was no longer just about an alien roommate. It was about two beings, from completely different worlds, trying to find their place in a universe that seemed too vast and complicated to understand. But for now, that shared understanding, whatever it was enough. And for the first time, Sam believed that maybe, just maybe, this strange connection with Zorath was something worth holding on to. The unexpected twist. The days following their conversation felt different, lighter in a way. Sam could feel a shift in the atmosphere, a sense that things were no longer hanging by a thread. Zorath's attempts to understand human emotions had become less about observation and more about shared experience. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't easy, but there was an unspoken agreement between them that they would try to figure this out together. They weren't the same, not by any stretch of the imagination, but something about that difference had started to feel less like a wall and more like a bridge. Sam had even started looking forward to their conversations. They weren't just about Zorath learning to laugh at jokes or understanding sadness. They had started talking about everything, from their hopes and fears to the meaning of human connection and the complexities of feeling at home. Sam had been surprised by how much she had shared with Zorath despite the alien's strange beginnings. There was a comfort in the quiet moments with them, a sense of mutual respect that had blossomed from the chaos of their earlier interactions. One evening, as Sam was getting ready to unwind with a book, Zorath approached her once again. Their presence had become a quiet constant in her life, but tonight felt different. There was a nervousness in Zorath's posture, a tension in the air that Sam couldn't ignore. "Sam," Zorath began, their voice softer than usual, "there is something I need to tell you. Something important." Sam looked up from her book, concern flickering in her chest. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting the book aside. Zorath hesitated before continuing, their gaze heavy with thought. "I have been learning, but I have also been hiding something from you. A truth I have kept concealed even from myself. It is not just about my mission, Sam. It is not just about observing your emotions. There is something else. Something I didn't know would happen when I came here." Sam's mind raced, her thoughts spinning in every direction. She hadn't expected this. Another revelation from Zorath, and the fear of being deceived crept in. "What do you mean? What else have you been hiding?" Zorath's eyes met hers, and there was something raw, something almost pleading in them. "When I came to Earth, I was sent with a single directive, to understand human emotions. But over time, I have realized that the true purpose of my mission was never to observe you as a species. It was always about you, Sam. I was sent here because of you." Sam's stomach dropped and her heart began to beat faster. "What do you mean, because of me?" Zorath stepped closer, their voice trembling slightly. "I was not just sent to Earth to study humanity. I was sent to find you, to find someone who could help me understand emotions in a way no one else could. You were chosen, Sam, not by chance, but because you are special. Your emotions, your capacity to connect with others, to feel, they are more profound than anything my people have ever encountered." Sam stared at Zorath, trying to piece together what they were saying. "Are you saying you were sent here for me?" she asked, disbelief coloring her voice. Zorath nodded slowly. "Yes. When I first arrived, I did not understand. I thought I was simply an observer, someone studying the strange behaviors of humans. But the longer I spent with you, the clearer it became. I was not just sent to study. I was sent to learn from you, Sam, to feel what you feel, to understand what it means to be truly alive. My mission was never about humanity as a whole. It was always about you, and how you could help me bridge the gap between my kind and human emotions." The words hit Sam like a punch to the chest. She had been so focused on Zorath's strange behavior, on the feeling of being observed, that she hadn't even considered the possibility that there was something more at play. Zorath wasn't just a confused alien trying to understand emotions. They had been chosen for a very specific purpose. "I don't understand," Sam said quietly, shaking her head. "Why me? Why not anyone else? Why me, Zorath?" Zorath's gaze softened, their voice full of something Sam couldn't quite name. "Because you are unique, Sam. Your ability to feel, to truly experience the depth of emotions is unlike anything I've ever encountered. You are human, but you possess something that transcends that. Your emotional range, your empathy, your connection to the world around you. It is what drew me here. And the more I spend time with you, the more I realize that this is not just a mission anymore. This is something personal, something I did not expect. Sam took a step back, the weight of Zorath's words crashing down on her. She had spent weeks trying to understand the alien, trying to navigate the strange and uncharted territory of their relationship. But now, with this revelation, everything felt suddenly overwhelming. She had been the one who thought she was helping, Zorath showing them how to feel, how to experience human emotions. But the truth was that Zorath had been the one guiding her all along, in their own quiet way. Zorath had come here, not only to learn from her, but to connect with her on a level she had never imagined. "But you've been using me," Sam said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "You've been pretending to learn from me, but all along you were using me to understand something deeper, something about yourself." Zorath flinched, as if the words stung more than Sam had intended. "I did not want to use you," they said, their voice barely above a whisper, "but I understand now that I have been selfish. I needed to connect with you, not just as an experiment, but as a person. And I am sorry. I am so sorry if you feel betrayed." The sincerity in Zorath's voice was unmistakable, and for a moment, Sam didn't know what to think. The line between trust and betrayal had become blurry, and she wasn't sure if she could just forgive everything so easily. Still, there was something in the way Zorath spoke, in the vulnerability they had finally allowed to surface, that made Sam question everything she thought she knew about their relationship. "I don't know if I can just forget this, Zorath," Sam said quietly. "I don't know if I can just ignore the fact that you've been lying to me all this time, but I think I understand now. Maybe I was the one who could help you understand emotions. But I don't know what comes next. I don't know what we do with all this." Zorath nodded slowly, their face filled with regret and longing. "I do not know either, Sam, but I know that I do not want to be your mission anymore. I want to be your companion. I want to understand you, not as a subject, but as a person. I want to learn what it means to feel with you." Sam stood in silence, processing everything. The truth had been laid bare before her, and it was impossible to ignore. Zorath had been sent here for a reason, to understand her, to feel what she felt. And yet, despite the confusion and betrayal, Sam realized something else. She had started to care for Zorath, in her own way. It wasn't perfect, and it was still complicated, but it was real. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Sam said quietly, "but maybe, just maybe, we can try together, to figure it out. Not as a mission, but as two people just figuring it out." Zorath's eyes shone with something Sam had never seen before, hope. And for the first time, Sam wasn't sure what came next, but she knew they weren't alone in it anymore.